All right, as you all know, the Minding Your Business podcast is powered by the Binge Podcast Network. The Binge Podcast Network is www.onabinge.com. We've got a lineup, a roster, a winning roster, unlike the New York Knicks or some of these other teams in the NBA or even in the NFL. We've got a winning roster here at the Binge Podcast Network of podcasters on a myriad of different subjects. If you're a podcaster, if you're an aspiring podcaster, if you got an idea about a podcast that hit you 5 minutes ago, you need to get with a network of support. Myself and Dominic Lawson of Owls LLC, as well as the Startup Life podcast, started the Binge Podcast Network last year and working with a great, again, lineup of podcasters. It's about you keeping your show and just getting the support at the end of the day that can drive listenership to your podcast and then ultimately drive dollars in terms of sponsorships and things like that. So you need to get with us, www.onabinge.com. You can also leadership, talent, development, social engineering, which we'll talk about today. Brooks Brothers Consulting, Inc. is the move that you need to make. That's brooksbrothersconsulting.com. Started by my brother Philip and I back in June of 2013. And we're organizational development support for your business. So business planning, business strategy, social engineering, analytics, however you want to say it, and then leadership talent development. Because see, listen, with your company, whether it's just yourself or you've got 10,000 employees, you've got to develop people. You've got to develop processes that are going to drive your business. And so you need support to do that. You're not going to do that all by yourself. Look at anybody that's been successful. They didn't do that on their own. They weren't on an island. They didn't say, well, I can't trust nobody and this and that. You're going to have to if you're going to be in business. You don't want to trust anybody, because either you go trust somebody or you go trust your employer. And you can ask people at the government, some of the government employees who got back to work this week, what that's like. So who are you going to trust? All right? Hold people accountable. You get burned, you get burned. That happens in life. Stick around long enough, you do enough things, you get burned. You won't get burned with Brooks Brothers Consulting because we're here to help. We're good-hearted people that just love sharing knowledge with people in order to have their business be edified. So you need to get with us, brooksbrothersconsulting.com, and let's get to work. It's already February 1st of 2019. Damn, wasn't January long. January must have been a whole year almost by itself. But anyway, I've got people here on Facebook Live. I've got them on Spreaker. We're ready. Episode number 80 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. Let's get to it.
What we do here is go back.
All right. I'm your host, Champeron. This is the Minding Your Business podcast, coming to you on what has been a record-breaking cold week here in the United States of America. It's been cold here in Memphis, Tennessee. Shout out to everybody that's in the Northeast and in the Midwest. We were seeing states this week that were 50 and 60 and 70 below in wind chill. My goodness. And now you're talking to someone who was born in the Midwest, who spends a little bit of time doing business up in the Midwest. And actually, we had a support team up in Minnesota that had to shut down for 2 days this week due to frigid temperatures there in Minnesota, where it got to be 27 below. Yes, that's right, 27 below in the state of Minnesota. Yeah, could you just imagine? Now, some of you folks that are listening to the podcast and you're in Florida and you're in California and you're in Texas, southern Texas and some of these places, New Mexico, you cannot fathom being in weather when it's 27 below. I saw where, I think it was on the Today Show, where they brought out some wet clothes and they froze within like 4 minutes. I mean, that's crazy, up in the Midwest. So for those of you that are looking to thaw out in the Midwest, I feel your pain, and hopefully things can turn around from the weather standpoint here soon. Let me shout out some people here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. John, what's going on? Philip Ashley, what's going on, brother? New location coming, man. It's looking good. It's looking good already, man. Conrad, what's going on, man? Brother, I met this week. Streets Ministries with the whole team over there. Shout out to you. Ojinga Carr. Yeah, that's the main guy. Epiphany Consulting is what you need to do. That boy's live sharing information on Facebook Live every day. So he's committed to sharing information. Ojinga takes a lot of time out to help. He's a great advocate for edification as well. And you need to check him out because he's doing things on a daily basis. Antoinette Miller, IT professional. I'd love to get her thoughts on today's subject. Josh Midget, you need to check out Talk Back Live, Deliberation Sports Podcast on all your podcast networks. You need to make sure you check him out. Absolute Tax and Financial Services over in Eastern Arkansas. You need to get with Miss May here, that's on Facebook Live. Lou Garza, what's up? Scott Kenny, what's going on, my man? Lisa, how you doing? Jessica, how you doing? What's going on? Comrade says, Philip Enterprises, ready to rock with you. Yes, sir, brother. We go do that. Definitely. And listen, if you're on Facebook Live and in the comments, make sure that you post whether you got an upcoming event or your business. People they can't support you if they don't know what's going on. So post it up there. I'm not kicking people off. I know there's people that do that. I encourage that. I encourage people to share their business. And if you're on Spreaker or you're on Facebook, again, post your business or post your website so that people can know and they might could check you out. You just never know. You may find a new business or a new business partner or both or whatever it is that's in positivity. So make sure that you do that. All right, episode number 80. Social engineering is the topic today on Friday, February the 1st. And let's get right into the subject because one of the things that many companies over the last certainly 20 years, but even less than that, maybe in the last 10 or 15, have become very serious about data security. Data security is a big thing. You've seen breaches all over the place, from Target to Equifax to all kinds of different companies all around the country that have experienced things like breaches and whatnot. And to your natural mind, you may think in your business, well, I've got Norton firewalls and I've got Adobe this, and go down your alphabet. I got every kind of security on my email and on my laptop and on my tablet and my phone. And I've got antivirus this and whatever, right? One of the things that many businesses don't tend to realize is that those things are great. It's great to invest in those things to protect your devices, protect your network and whatnot, because your company data is extremely, extremely valuable and most of the times proprietary, if anything, to you, as is customer data. So when you collect information from customers, your customers expect and hold you accountable to keeping that data safe and secure. Okay? So they expect that, as they should. They expect that you're going to keep their information secure and it's not going to fall into the wrong hands. Because when people get a hold of your social security number and your address and your date of birth and all these different things, this information, there's a lot of things unscrupulous that they can do with that information. Jessica Wright, thanks for sharing your information. Deverett Watson, thanks for joining, brother. Make sure you share your information. Credible Solutions is the move right there. So it is critical that you invest in those things for your network, your infrastructure, because we all use technology to some kind of level within our business. Now, there are a few places and a few businesses that are still using file cabinets and, paper files and all this kind of thing, but those are so few and far in between. So it is critical that you invest in those things. What you may not realize is those things are fine and dandy in terms of those different platforms and things like that to protect your information. What most business owners and businesses fail to realize is that the biggest threat to your business is not that your firewall is going to fail you, or your Norton's not going to work, your Adobe, whatever it is. More than likely, they're going to do their job, right? Or you're going to know that real quick and you're going to make some different choices and decisions. But here's the thing. When it comes to data security and protecting information, you and your employees are the biggest threat to your business. And I'll say that again. You and your employees are the biggest threat to your business. Antoinette Miller says, our data security course talks about this extensively. InfoSec has internal and external threats. So if you're on Facebook Live, Antoinette Miller, who I mentioned, IT professional, IT guru, go to YouTube /I am IT training. So that's youtube.com /I am IT training. And there is information on what we're talking about today, some training and things like that. So Antoinette, thank you so much for sharing that here on Facebook Live. And that's what this is about. Again, sharing information. So the biggest threat to your business is social engineering. So let me explain to you what social engineering is so that you have a good foundation base as to what we're talking about. And again, this can happen whether you started your business yesterday and you just got a tax ID number and a prayer. And you set up your business email with a smile and you just got started yesterday, or you've been in business since the end of the Cold War, or you've been in business since the beginning of the 20th century. Doesn't matter. Social engineering is the act of tricking someone into divulging information or taking action, usually through technology. The idea behind social engineering is to take advantage of a potential victim's natural tendencies and emotional reactions. That's how we're defining social engineering. I'll share that with you again. Social engineering is the act of tricking someone into divulging information or taking action, usually through technology. The idea behind social engineering is to take advantage of a potential victim's natural tendencies and emotional reactions. In my past in banking, where this thing happened all the time in terms of people being sometimes duped or tricked into doing certain things, in my past, I have worked with companies such like my own, such like Data Maxim with my guy Greg Bernard, to review things like social engineering and how hackers and how spammers and how fraudsters and how crooks will look to connect with people. Because again, when you talk about natural tendencies and things like that, people tend to be very trusting. People tend to sometimes be willing to go down pathways that they shouldn't, that normally your firewall and all those kind of things are catching. All right. And so social engineering is a big threat because as your company, whether it's your company you work for, both, whatever it is, as your company engages into more technology, and technology is infused as it is today, and it's just going to continue because we've got mobile devices and things like that. Your people are going to have to be trained and have a understanding and a respect for social engineering. Let me share with you real quick some things about social engineering or in terms of different types of social engineering. Okay? So, different types of social engineering. First is baiting. Number one is baiting. Let me give you an example. It's better to explain some of these as an example than to just give you the raw academic definition. here's what happens with baiting, and I'm going to use myself. So I'm going to call this crook Renegade Ron. All right. So Renegade Ron wants to get into your company. So what he does when he wants to bait you into an act, he'll do something like this. He'll leave a USB drive. So most of you have these, flash drives or these USB little drives. He'll leave that laying next to somebody. Okay, just a random USB drive. He might label it confidential. He might label it as bonuses. He might label it as incentive plan. He might label it as salary and benefits. Whatever it is to entice your employee or yourself into taking that USB drive, plugging it into your computer, and looking at the files because you're nosy and you want to see what's on the flash drive. Okay? Yeah. So guess what's on the flash drive? Not what's labeled on it. Malware, Trojans, things to begin the process of potentially hacking your network or getting on your computer, leaving viruses and things like that. Because those things are automatic. Once you plug it in and your computer begins reading that USB drive, you're done. All right? But remember what I said. It's baiting, right? So you have an employee. Renegade Ron comes by. He sees a few of your employees. He happens to just leave a flash drive just sitting on the desk. And again, it says salary. Your employee gets nosy, picks it up. I want to see what salaries are on this flash drive. Maybe it's some information that I can know. Maybe there's information about me or a coworker that I'll have. So then they plug it into their computer. Now they've been baited into some foolishness. So now someone has installed malware or different things on their computer. Maybe they've got access to the ISP address or different things like that. And so now it gets past your protections and things like that. Now you're screwed. All right? So that's baiting. Phishing. Many of y'all have heard of phishing. 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 Phishing's pretty well known. Most people have heard of that. There's been a lot of public cases about phishing and things like that. Phishing usually involves someone sending an email or some kind of text. Usually they're seeking information. It could be even more significant than that. A lot of phishing schemes may come from businesses that you do business with, whether it's the bank or the post office or something else that you're logging into maybe on a frequent basis. But just as an example, so let's just say you get an email that looks like it's coming from your bank. So let's just say you bank with Ron Bank and Trust. So at Ron Bank and Trust, you get an email that says, quick, there's an issue going on, need you to log into your account just to verify. Completely unsolicited, right? They just send you this random email. The fraudster on the other end of that is hoping that you'll click on the link because you'll be concerned about, oh my gosh, what's going on with my bank account? So then you click on the link and guess what? You're taken to a fake website that looks like Ron's Bank and Trust. Yeah, it looks just like it. So it can look legit, but it's faker than two wood nickels being rubbed together. So when you log into the fake site, this fake website from the link that you clicked in this email, you're handing over essentially your login credentials to a crook or crooks that could get that and then log into the real website, the real Ron's Bank and Trust website, and have access. They could send bill pays. They could transfer money. There's a lot of different things. They could see transactions and potentially know where you shop or where you might visit or frequent to look for you there. So there's a lot of things that can happen with phishing. So you got to be very careful, and we'll get into some of the best practices here in a little bit, folks, but be very careful with things like phishing and links that you click on coming from emails or in text messages, things like that. All right. So speaking of emails, you got email hacking and then contact spamming. So this one, it tends to be pretty hard hitting because it's not coming from a third party like a business or something like that. But with email hacking, typically what a crook's looking to do to you and to your business, you may get an email from someone in your contact list, a friend, family, Facebook friend, Instagram connection, LinkedIn, whoever it is. And the subject might say something along the lines of, hey, Ron, check out this website. It's really cool. Right? Now, one, y'all know damn well I don't talk like that. So you won't get no email from me that says anything like that. And probably most of your friends. But maybe you do have people who use that kind of vernacular. So if you do, and you get an email that may say, check out this site I found, it's really cool. You may need to think twice about opening that because a fraudster could get a hold of one of your friends. Okay? A fraudster could get a hold to one of your friends and they could essentially copy or kind of clone their email and then have access to their contact list. This is why it's called email hacking. They get into your friend's contact list and you're a contact. So now they send it out, and what they're hoping to do is make this thing spread. So if they get a hold of your friend, they can get a hold of you. And most of us have hundreds, if not thousands, of contacts that are tied to our emails and in our phones and things like that. So a fraudster could get a hold to your contact list and then send these emails out, right? And again, they can contain links. They could be loaded with malware, all kinds of different things, man. So you want to be extremely careful with these kind of things for sure. No doubt about it. Deverett, thanks for sharing your stuff. Ms. Marshall, what's up, royalty? Ms. Metcalf, how you doing, my good friend, good sis right there. Dominic Lawson, what I talked about earlier, Owls LLC with the Binge Podcast Network, the Startup Life Podcast. Miss Alexander, how you doing? Thank you all. Thank you all. Sis Shay, your ears must have been burning, girl. I was talking about you. And Miss Hughes, how you doing? Good afternoon, sis. I appreciate all of you joining. So email hacking. You got to be careful with what you're clicking on in your business. And it's not just you, it's your employees. What are your employees clicking on? When they get emails, what are they clicking on? When I led large retail teams, we paid big money to have people come in and test us on these things. They would send emails just to see who clicks on them. They would send emails that would look to my employees that would look like they came from me. But usually they have misspellings and things like that. And we'll get to how you can recognize some of this stuff. But that's usually one telltale sign is if I misspell my own name in my email, something's up. Or I've got just it's spell check even in the email. So if I've got a bunch of misspelled words and bad, run-on sentences and all this kind of thing, you got to look at that more than once. Okay, but we spend big money to make sure that these things were in line. The fourth type of social engineering is called pretexting. Pretexting is, let me give you an example of that. And most people don't fall victim to this as much anymore. Sometimes our seniors or our elders get, caught up in these type of things. But pretexting is basically you receive an email, right? And it's from somebody just random. And you've been named the beneficiary on somebody's will. Somebody you don't know. And in order to claim the money or whatever it is, this person's passed away, and in order to get the money, they need your personal information and your bank account information. and they can send this over. What this is taking advantage of is greed and stupidity. One, greed and stupidity, which are a bad combination. All right. So no, nobody's going to email you randomly about you being the beneficiary of nobody's will. Okay. That's not going to happen. But sometimes, this would happen with seniors, or sometimes like really young people when they think they're getting something for nothing. And so the email will be real convincing. This is your long lost cousin or brother or whatever on your mama's side, your daddy's side, whatever. Or it could be completely random. Like this person's on the other side of the world. They're related to you by a long bloodline and they've passed away. I am the executor of the estate and they've left $100,000 to you. And I want to get this money to you before it gets taken away by the government or whatever. And so they'll ask you for your contact information. They'll ask you for your bank account information. And if you give it to them, you're got. Because now they're going to go and they've got access to go withdraw funds and use your account any kind of way, open new accounts in your name and go do things. And so you're stuck. Okay? So be careful with that. The fifth one is a term called quid pro quo. And most of you are familiar with what that means just in its general sense. But essentially what quid pro quo is as an example, someone gives you something and you give something back in reciprocity. So it's I give you this and you give me that. Okay? I'll give you an example of quid pro quo that happens. And this happens in companies quite a bit, this one. So pay attention here. With quid pro quo, let's just say you've got a fraudster or a scammer and they're targeting a company, right? And they may pretend to be IT support. All right. So think of a large company and you typically do things with IT or whatnot. So all of a sudden somebody from IT reaches out to you, or they seem to be from IT, and they say, I'll use me for example. So they say, Ron, there's an issue with your computer, my man. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to give me your login credentials. And if you give me your login credentials, I can go in and I can, resolve this for you. Right. And so you give them the login credentials, your username, password, all that kind of thing. Well, then guess what they do? They take control of your computer. They can load it with malware, or they can extract data that you may have on your computer. This tends to happen with either people in the C-suite at the executive level. This may happen with the business owner, or this may happen with your brand new employee who you just hired last week, who may or may not know any better. And so again, we're going to get into some of the best practices here, but I want you to understand quid pro quo. And so when you get a solicitation, whether it's digital, but usually it's by phone, and so it may be your internal IT people, or it may even be people completely outside the organization. That's happened before, where you just get a random call from someone that just says, hey, I'm with Microsoft. And there's been an issue with Microsoft, Windows 10 or whatever it is. And it looks like it's affected a bunch of computers. So I'm just making calls, and for $19.99, I can resolve this. So give me your debit card number. And once that goes through, then I'll go ahead and I'll send the patch out, and this will resolve your computer before your computer goes down. So they're taking advantage of your lack of knowledge and trying to get you to make a quick decision. Most times when it comes to crooks and things that are scams, people have high energy and they're trying to get you to make a quick decision right then. They're not going to let you mull over it or think about it or get back with them. They want you to decide right then. All right. So that's usually a telltale sign with something like quid pro quo. The last one that as far as a type of social engineering, is called vishing. So think of how phishing is. This is vishing with a V. V-I-S-H-I-N-G. Vishing. Vishing, it works a lot like phishing, but it usually tends to be more like employee to coworker. So vishing would be a criminal or a fraudster poses as a coworker. So again, sometimes this can happen in small businesses. It can happen in large businesses too. So they pose as a coworker and look to target you that way. You know, they may ask for your credentials. So it may be a coworker that, you know, you don't deal with that often, or they get inside the building and they get access to a phone and they see your extension. So here's Ron on the other end, your extension. Ron says, "Hey, I'm over here in marketing. I just started last week. You know, I'm excited to be here. But Tom asked me to call you and have you give me your credentials because we need those to practice whatever whatever it is that they're going to do, whatever information they're asking for." That's called vishing, and that's usually internal within the organization where a fraudster has got inside the business and is doing some things. So those are the 6 things that are as far as the types of social engineering here on the Minding Your Business podcast. So just to review them one more time. So you've got baiting, you've got phishing, you've got email hacking and contact spamming, you've got pretexting, you've got quid pro quo, and you've got vishing. Okay? So make sure you write those things down. You can go back and look at even more details or examples to make sure you get a good understanding. All right. Let me give you a few best practices. And these are things. Now, again, when we talk on this podcast, y'all know I'm not academic, right? So I'm talking from things that I've experienced, things that I've seen to go along with what I've read. All right. Let me give you a few best practice tips on what to do and then what we do to work with companies to help avoid social engineering. Because keep in mind, those things that I just mentioned are costing businesses, small business, they're costing them billions. With a B, yes, billions. And that number is only going up as more things are done online. People get ingrained in online transactions and things like that. You've got a population in America that's getting older, right? So that's a bad combination for people looking to scam and kind of get over on people, and particularly with your employees. All right. So some best practices for you. One, with anything that you're doing when it comes online or just anything, you got to consider the source. Consider the source. Go back to baiting. If you find a USB just sitting around, okay, that doesn't mean, I don't care how much it entices your curiosity. You got to teach your employees that when they find things, they need to report it right away. So whether that's to you as the owner, whether that's someone you've got in place in management, whether you're in management, even if you're the employee. If you're an employee right now at a business and you find a USB or you find something that's just out of the norm, that's just sitting around, you need to turn that into the right people. You know, so like if it's a USB, you need to turn that into your manager, or you turn that into your IT group or HR, whoever that is. You've got to turn that in, but you've got to consider the source. Links and attachments that come from, suspicious, sources and things like that. You need to consider just about everything suspicious. Unless you solicited it from somebody like a friend or a coworker or family, you need to scrutinize. If you just get random emails with links and things like that, you need to consider the source. One way that I always told employees was, if you get an email and you're just not quite sure or you don't recognize that link, just call the person. Just call the person. Or just email them back without clicking on the link. Just look and make sure, is their email correct? Is it spelled correctly? Look at their email signature. Is that correct? Is that spelled correctly? Is there crazy pictures and stuff like that in the email signature? But just pick up the phone and give them a call. And if you don't have their phone number, right, you may not be close enough to them anyway to be opening no link with information or to click on any information. So pick up the phone or shoot them a text and just say, hey, I got this email from you. Either to ask them what it's about or, make sure that it's them. Okay, so consider the source. Number 2, as a best practice for avoiding social engineering in your business, is slow down. Okay, what did I say earlier? Right? People who social engineer they're going to try to get your employees to make quick decisions, right? Without going back and kind of thinking about what they're doing or what they're being told. The reason they make those quick decisions is because they're fearful, they're scared. They tell them, oh, you're about to lose everything on your computer if you don't act right now. Or if you don't send me your bank information, the $200,000 that was promised to you is going to be taken over by the government. Or they're going to tax it at a 90% rate or whatever it is. Any kind of ploy to get you to move fast or to get you to move quick. So be very, very careful with that. Be very careful with that. A scammer is counting on you to move quick. So that you won't ask questions or you won't be alert to what they're doing. But you got to look at in your own best interest and the best interest of your company with these things. If it sounds, too odd to be true, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. That's just the natural thing. Listen, and I'm not even trying to be funny when I say this. There's no Nigerian prince that's going to reach out to you about a damn thing. If you're sitting over here in United States of America. There's no Nigerian prince that has no money for you. You don't have any family in Egypt that left you any money. Because if they did, you'd already know about it and you've been talking for years. Okay? And because you know how we are here in America, as much as folk love money, if there's anybody about to die and leave some money in your family, everybody know about it. And y'all know that. So you're not going to get some, Nigerian prince or some person overseas doing stuff, with requests for money or to send you money. So just don't fall for that. And teach your employees, like if they get an email from somebody saying they're in Uganda and they, saw your business online and interested about this and wanted you to send them that, just have them be able to report that. You need to keep some kind of log or some kind of way that people are not clicking on links randomly. They're not opening attachments, all those kind of things, because you don't want to become victim of a data security breach as a small business or as a large business. Even if the business is just you, if you're just self-employed and you have your business, you still have your company's data, and more than likely you've got data of your customers in places that could be compromised. Okay, we talked about antivirus software and security, all those type of things, the Norton securities and blah blah blah. You definitely want to have those and invest in those. But again, social engineering comes down to your people, and you don't want your people to be the weakest link. Okay, email software, things like that. Those things can scan your emails, can scan attachments and things like that. They can help identify on the front end to help your people be able to recognize issues. So you should consider having that. Most email platforms and things like that you would have for your company come pre-installed or already include these things. But if not, y'all got to make sure that you have these things in play. All right. Another big thing that you can do in your business, these are things that really help and that I found in my experience, is you got to put a policy together that, so here's what I did. You have to get with IT people such as Antoinette Miller, Greg Bernard, and many of those that are here on Facebook Live and kind of around if you're partnering with somebody. But you got to create some kind of policy that people are accountable to. Because you can't just have people just randomly just doing stuff, clicking on links and things like that and compromising your business. So from an accountability standpoint, you put together a kind of a procedure, a policy for social engineering. And you've got to practice that. You've got to test it It's only as good as you testing it. Okay? So some of the ways that you do, things with accountability is, one, you've got to train. So these things that I'm talking about today, you've got to bring in people like myself to come in and talk to your employees about the dangers and the real life situations impact that can happen when you fall victim to social engineering. Because it's not just yourself, it's the company and essentially every customer that you dealt with or ever dealt with could be compromised. And whatever type of business that you have, once you're tied to technology and the network and you're using emails and you're using computers and devices, you definitely need to be listening up. As you expand your business, you've got to make sure that people are held accountable. So what happens if someone falls victim to social engineering? Is that just okay, whatever? If you end up with a breach or information is compromised, you got to have some accountability, but the accountability's got to come with training. So people have to know what to look for. You can't just hold them accountable without first having trained them and introduced them to what it is and what the expectations are and how to recognize when it's an issue. Okay? Some things that we encourage companies to do: lock your computer. So when you step away from your computer or your laptop or even your phone, lock it. Whether you've got facial recognition, you've got fingerprint recognition, or you just got old school password. When you walk away to go to the bathroom, or you walk away to go to lunch, or you're going to a meeting, lock your computer. So if someone walks in your office, or someone's in your house visiting or whatever, they can't just come up and get right on your computer. So lock your computers when you're away. When you're printing customer information, all right, so you print customer information, don't leave it on the printer. Like, especially if your printer is not locked down behind, any kind of protection, any kind of doors and walls. You got a public printer. You've got to make sure, and even if you don't, it's just not a good practice to leave your company's information or customer information on the printer where everybody can just see it, somebody can pick it up, and off you go. This was a big thing in the bank, y'all, because, and I'll get to something else here as far as the screen, but with locking your computer, but a lot of the accountability would come up where people would not lock their computer screen so people could see it. Sometimes some banks have the desk turned to where the people sitting at the desk, the salespeople, have their screens pointing towards the window. So if you walk away and you don't lock that computer, not only can someone inside the branch come and see the screen, somebody walking outside, sometimes someone even driving by, depending on how close the building is to the street, can see that computer. Now, what if it's your information that's on that screen? That can happen. You might have just been in the bank. They pulled up your information. So now they've got your name, address, phone number, date of birth, social security number, account numbers, all those things up on the screen. You got to lock down the computer. And when you print that information, you've got to shred it. You've got to shred it good. Rip it up into a gazillion pieces, cut it up, and then shred it. Don't just throw it in the trash can, because people do raid trash cans in businesses, in your business, in big businesses, looking for information. You've got to shred it. Okay? Passwords. Do not write your password down. I know we've got a password for every damn thing that we do nowadays. Everything's got a username and password. And some make you change it often, some don't. You should change your passwords often. And there's different rules of thumb with that. I tend to, with my business, I tend to change them when the seasons change. So when you go from spring to summer to fall to winter, as you change those seasons, and normally seasons are on anywhere from 3 to 5 month intervals anyway. As you change seasons, change your password. So on around the first day of spring or so, I change my password. First day of summer, change password. Fall, winter, and so forth. So change them, and then don't write them down and have them on sticky notes on the monitor. where anybody can see them, or in drawers that don't lock. So keep your passwords safe and secure, but be leery about writing them down and all those kind of things. So I hope this is helping somebody, because social engineering is it once was considered an emerging threat, but it's here, and your business could be victim if your employees aren't well equipped, and they have to have a knowledge and a training. And part of the accountability is they need to sign off that they've received that. And this is, whether you've got 2 people or you've got 10,000, doesn't matter. But it is ultra critical that you have these kind of things in place for your business. So make sure when you go back, after you listen to this podcast, gather your employees, share this podcast with them as a training ground, get them in touch with myself. We can definitely help, but you got to make sure you take this seriously, because a breach can cost your company reputation. It can cost you a lot of money. Nobody's going to trust your business after their data has been leaked all over the place. And I'll tell you, as someone who's been a part of a breach that happened as a result of social engineering, it is very painful for the people involved, the people that are making decisions, and ultimately the company, your company, and customers. So imagine, as a business owner, if you're a business owner and you're listening to this podcast, think about all the damage control you have to do if it gets public that you've had a breach, whether your customers know it, the general public knows it from the media, social media, whatever that is. It has shut businesses down. It's crippled businesses, and it's been a negative impact. So you can avoid that by adhering to the tips that I've shared, getting with people like me and others, working closely with your IT teams and your human resources teams, whether you're all that yourself or you've got that type of hierarchy in your business. You got to make sure that you put a plan in place for social engineering. If you do not, and you just glance over this and you think it's just one of those trend kind of things, this is not trendy, okay? This is real, and it's affecting people and has been for years. So I hope this has been informative for you. I hope that you're never a victim to social engineering, particularly your company or your business. But reach out to me, inbox me, send me an email, ron@themybpodcast.com. I'd love to hear if you're having success with avoiding social engineering, you've got additional best practices that you'd like to share, or if you need support in that type of area. If you realize that we really need some third-party support, I would love to come in and help your business. I have no problems jumping on a plane. I have no problems driving to your business and helping you out and being a resource. So this is Champ Ron. This is the Minding Your Business podcast. Make sure you go out and subscribe. Thank you so much. We're crossed over, again, 33,000 downloads. So thank you so much. We're on Apple and Google, SoundCloud, YouTube, everywhere else that you find, Spotify, everywhere that you find great podcast content. Thank you for everybody here on Facebook Live. Shout out to all of you. Shout out to everybody that's on Spreaker Live. Thank you so much. And it's the first day of February. We're a month in already to 2019. How you doing on those goals? Everything that you committed to in December, how are those things looking? If you're going through tough times right now and you're struggling, those troubles won't last always, okay? You're struggling with your business, you're struggling personally, you're struggling with both of them. Those times won't last always. It's not always about the why, but it's the possibilities of the how. And you focus in on how you're going to get through it and take the steps, build good relationships, and you can get through. But don't fall victim to social engineering. That's the moral of today's story. So, listen, I'm Champ Ron. This is the Minding Your Business podcast. Y'all know what we do. Every week we try to bring you information that could help your business. Real life, raw business information coming right from me with no filter and none of that. So thank you again so much. And we're going to move on through what's going to be a great weekend. Hopefully it warms up around the country. And we're just going to keep pressing on. And next Friday, we're going to be back with another episode of the podcast. If everything lines up as it should. So, Champron, Minding Your Business Podcast, the Binge Podcast Network. Y'all enjoy a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you back next time. Peace.